Good morning, friends. Matt Greer here from the sanctuary at St. John's United Methodist Church in Albuquerque. So happy you are joining us this morning. We are on a little bit different platform for those of you who have been tuning in the last few weeks for this. We're on a platform this morning called StreamYard that is sending this to our YouTube channel just because we're still experimenting with how we are doing this. And so we'll see how this works. You have a chat box, and so we hope that you will interact and comment and ask questions and send positive vibes and affirmations. We could all use that these days. I'm excited this morning because I've got a friend who is going to be spending the hour with me, and I will invite him in just a moment. First, as I usually do, I wanted to let you know a couple of things that are going on in the life of the music ministry of St. John's this week. We are continuing our Wednesday live stream concerts that have been going on for several months, every Wednesday at noon, as most of you are aware. Good morning, Quang. Good morning, April. Nice to see you. And this Wednesday, we have the Robert Law Trio. Robert Law, who is the longtime music director for our Jazz Vespers series, is going to do an hour of jazz with wonderful bassist Colin Dubel and wonderful drummer Cal Haynes. And so that'll be Wednesday at noon Mountain Standard Time on our YouTube channel. It'll be a good thing, I think, the day after the election to have some jazz. And so hope you'll tune in for that. And then just a couple of things coming up in the next couple of weeks. A week from Wednesday, on the 11th, we're welcoming a wonderful string quartet, a set of players, most of whom play in the Santa Fe Symphony, some of whom play in the New Mexico Philharmonic, the Aspen String Quintet, David Felberg, Nicole Maniaci, Kim Fredenberg, Melinda Mack, and Toby Vigneault. And then the Wednesday after that, on the 18th of November, we've got a wonderful singer-songwriter named Oscar Butler, who's kind of a local favorite. If you haven't heard him, look him up. He's wonderful. So Wednesday live streams and an opportunity to donate to Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless as well. And then the other thing I call your attention to is that this Saturday evening, one of our fantastic music ministry interns, Natalie Benelli, is giving her senior recital. And of course, like everything, this is not as she imagined it would be. It's not at Keller Hall with friends and family gathering, but it is going to be live streamed from our sanctuary Saturday night at 8 o'clock, Natalie Benelli's senior recital. And especially those of you who are part of the choir community of St. John's, we love to show up to our interns' recitals and show them lots of love. And so we hope that you will do that virtually on Saturday night, 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, Natalie Benelli's recital. So those of you who have been in on these the last several weeks kind of know the drill. We get together and talk about music and what's going on. And I am so happy this morning that I just get to have a conversation rather than doing a monologue. And I get to do so with a good friend, Taylor Davis, who's joining us from Texas. Taylor is a church musician in a Methodist church as I am. He's the director of music and worship arts at St. Andrew United Methodist Church in Plano, Texas. We've been friends for a long time, and I honestly don't know why necessarily when I think about it, because when I compare myself to him, I don't really come out ahead. He does a lot of things that I don't do. He's a wonderful composer. He's a wonderful pianist. He's younger than me, which is annoying. But I will say that I still have all my hair. And that's when I think about that, I feel better about comparing myself to Taylor. Taylor, welcome.
No, the hair pull.
Taylor is frozen where I am, ladies and gentlemen. Can you?
Hello.
Hello. That was great, but you froze up. At least you did here. Can you hear me okay?
I can. That was the Holy Spirit moving. That's what that was.
Yeah, that's annoying when that happens. So thank you for spending some time arranging a really lovely background for us to see behind you this morning.
It's how my soul feels at the moment. Just gray.
And let's start with this. I'm at work, obviously. I'm in the sanctuary. I assume you are at home?
why are you doing this to me? Yes, I'm at home. You're at church. You're a superior human being. Yes, I'm at home. I spend most Mondays working on either writing projects for the week or editing audio, for the many different videos that we're trying to put together for. I mean, we're in the middle of editing Christmas stuff, just to get ahead of
Right.
it. So Monday has sort of been my stay at home and sit in front of a computer day.
Yeah. And when you are going into work and working, I mean, are you guys on a regular schedule? I'm just kind of curious about getting together and doing worship planning in together, or is your staff working by Zoom as ours is, or how's it working for you?
Yeah, it's completely online. I will say the sort of the broader worship planning is online, and then the like my staff will get together maybe at the church and just try to just be in the same room as we talk about how to get creative with things. I feel like the limitation at this point with being online for these meetings is I can come up with the ins and outs or the 30,000 foot view, but if I'm going to do something more creative, I'd rather be in a room with a human, even if we have to wear face masks, the whole time. So
Right. Yeah.
that's kind of what we've been doing.
I've been so grateful in all this. I mean, obviously, I've been working from home too, but I've also been grateful to have a place to come, just so that there's some separation of work and home. I know you understand that. We are, as Taylor and I were chatting before we went live, I think both of us are in a place of trying to figure out how we're feeling about Christmas. Because this is just so different this year. And honestly, for me, it's difficult to get some excitement and creativity and energy around Christmas, just knowing what the limitations are. Obviously, we have done, because we've got fantastic staff who are really gifted in this stuff. We've done 3 virtual choir projects so far and are looking at virtual stuff for Christmas. And I have been really grateful for not only the staff members, Jim Aaron and Shay Perry, who have been working on the virtual stuff for us, but also those choir members who have been willing to put themselves out there to do that, because that is such a, as I've said more than once, most people didn't join a choir because they wanted to be a soloist, let alone videotape themselves singing a solo and have to send that in. So what's that been like? What's that been like for you guys in virtual projects, and what are you working on in that regard?
Yeah, we have done a few. So we started early on. We did one with the youth choir and one with the children's choir, and I held off on doing one with the adults because I just didn't feel that just felt like a group that was going to be the most resistant, And then this summer we held, we were to host annual conference at St. Andrew. And that ended up being an all virtual event. And so as a part of that, we were forced into doing virtual stuff with the adults. And man, so many people wrote and just, jumped ship and said, I don't think I understand the technology well enough or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's so obvious that nobody wants to participate like that for all the reasons you just mentioned, the sense, the feeling that that's not why they ever joined a choir to begin with. And even some of my staff members or staff singers submitted videos to that project and said that they would rather just stand and have somebody judge their naked body rather than ever do another virtual video. So we have done some, and we're doing some more for Christmas, but we're going to handle the ones for Christmas a little differently, and we are going to allow, it's kind of a long story, but we're going to allow our staff singers to record with a couple of our volunteer singers at the church, And therefore, even though distanced in the sanctuary, probably wearing masks, at least being able to sing with one other person and a staff singer, which probably results in higher participation, rather than somebody just being at home and recording themselves in their dining room. So we have some coming up. They're just going to look, they're going to feel a little different than the ones that we tried before. And honestly, like I couldn't have even come up with that idea if I hadn't experienced the first virtual choir with them, where it felt like an uphill climb. Like it was really only due to realizing that people just don't want to do that, in order for me to think more creatively about how to make it happen.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Is your church building basically closed to non-staff right now?
Well, we've eased up on that a little bit, just in October. It's still not open to just anybody, but until October, it was only church staff. And now I think some different groups are meeting at different times, but even that's still fairly limited as to who can come. And then, of course, depending on what size group you are, is what size room you get. So I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's so challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about commissions or other stuff for you? Are you writing music these days?
Yeah. I have some stuff that I've put together for Christmas for us, just out of necessity, trying to do things that feel bigger than just hymns, but also maybe more manageable than the Pinkham Magnificat, for instance. Yes, I'm working on some stuff. I've been scoring a video game this fall.
I saw that. I saw that on your. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but tell me about that, because I've seen this. I've seen this thing.
Yeah, the comic, The Awkward Yeti.
Right.
And I, in just sort of a random way, connected with Nick, the artist, this summer, and I said, hey, if you don't have somebody writing for you, I scored the Cyanide and Happiness video game 2 years ago. I'd love to work. I know it's the most ridiculous thing.
No, it's fantastic.
It is fantastic, but just even saying the name Cyanide and Happiness and just casually mentioning it is funny to me. So I mentioned that and said that I'd love to work with him, because I was a longtime fan of The Awkward Yeti, and he lit up. He was like, "Yep, let's do it." So I've worked on that a little bit this fall, and so that's been good. My mass was supposed to have been recorded this summer and wasn't, and so that's given me a little bit more time to just sit at the 30,000-foot view and ask whether or not I'm happy with the arc of the thing, and make little edits here and there. I had a couple of commissions. I haven't heard back from those people. I reached out to them kind of earlier on in COVID. I feel like everybody is doing everything they know to do to stay afloat, and writing me back, if you're those people, is probably way down on your to-do list. So I totally understand. I really do. It is artistically frustrating, and I had already sort of carved out my year so that I could work on several of these commissions. And when it doesn't work, I worry that somehow on the other side there's going to be this backlog of stuff that people are going to want quickly, and I just don't. I don't want to work quickly like that.
Right.
So
Yeah, you mentioned your mass, which I know that you've been working on. This is the first mass setting I think that you've written, right? And you mentioned that it was supposed to be recorded this summer. Who was going to record it this summer, Taylor?
Matt, have you ever heard of Voces 8? Yeah, they were going to record it in London again and so I think in the end, whether it was a Decca recording or just a Voces 8 recording, they would put together an album of the Magnificat, the Mass, and maybe a couple of other pieces of mine. So the Mass recording was supposed to happen in August,
Mhm.
and obviously it did not.
But it will, and that's something to look forward to.
It will, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it definitely is something to look forward to. And right now, I'll hold on to anything that feels like it's a carrot on the end of the stick.
Yeah. Some of you folks who are St. John's and have been with us for a while and have known about the relationship that we've had with Voces 8 for about 10 years. They've been here 5 or 6 times, I think. And not long after that, they started going to Texas. And I don't know how many times they've been to your church, Taylor, but Taylor wrote, forget how long ago it was, but you wrote an Ave Maria for them to sing with our choir when they were here and your choir when you were there. And it's just a lovely piece. I remember that really fondly.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was
yeah.
that was Paul's idea, to have something that was a piece that they could do in Albuquerque and at the time when I was in Fort Worth. And he didn't come up with anything other than, why don't we do this? And I just thought, well, why don't we do it for dual choir? And then that way you all have one thing to learn, we have one thing to learn, and when we put it together, we'll experience what it feels like to be sort of call and response in a way that the Brits, that's so second nature to them. So that, yeah, that was fun to put together. I have not yet sent that to a publisher, and 5 years later, I'm not even sure where it is. Maybe you have a copy you could scan.
I do. I have a copy. I remember marking up the score for my singers with brackets, one bracket saying Brits and one bracket saying New Mexicans, so they would know what they were supposed to sing.
I remember that too. Please feel free to send that along.
Okay, I will. And then, of course, your Magnificat, which you wrote for us, which we're going to hear a movement of in just a second, they took on and recorded, and how cool is that? And we were, at least our connection to the piece at St. John's was supposed to continue this year in 2 ways. We were going to be doing it with a New Mexico Philharmonic, and I think in February, I can't even remember. And then, of course, we were going to go to London next June and see you there and your choir and put a bunch of wonderful singers together and do that piece there. And that's been postponed until 2022, but we're still very much planning on it and looking forward to it.
Yeah, good.
I every Monday morning talk about a couple of pieces that I love. They tend to be choral in nature, and I asked our guest to do the same thing this morning, and we came up with 2 very different pieces. So I'm going to screen share to show you a piece right now. I have to tell you that technologically speaking, we have been able in past weeks on a different platform to show you the score at the same time that you're hearing a recording. And for whatever reason this morning, probably it's Taylor's fault, that is not working. So we're going to have to do one at a time. So let me show you a piece of music. And Taylor, when I play a recording, you're going to remind me to mute.
Okay.
Okay, so this is mine for this morning. This is an arrangement of a spiritual, Elijah Rock. And the background of this for me simply is that, I have always loved spirituals and especially choral arrangements of spirituals as long as I have been working with choirs. And at least at the time that I started directing choirs, it feels like there was a pretty set kind of canon of arrangements by people such as Chester Hairston and William Dawson, and that have been done by generations of choirs and will continue to be. And then I was at the National Choral Directors Convention in Washington, D.C. I want to think it was like 1995. And when you go to that convention, as Taylor can attest, it's very performance heavy. If you go to everything, you hear choir after choir after choir after choir. And by about the second day, you just kind of want to go to a movie. It's an overload of choral music. And so those performances that I've heard at ACDA conventions that really stand out in my memory were really special performances. And this was a performance in Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. by a group called the Moses Hogan Chorale, which was an African-American choir up from New Orleans. And they just completely rocked the house. I remember distinctly that there was a standing ovation after the first piece of music that they sang. And the person who directed them and arranged all of their music was someone who I think kind of really started a renaissance in arrangements of spirituals. And his arrangements are amazing and creative, and a lot of them are very, very challenging and difficult technically. And this is his arrangement of Elijah Rock that I'm going to show you. I was talking with Taylor before we came on about how in high school we all sang the Chester Harrison version of Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, trying as white Midwestern kids to get the syncopations just right. And so that's the one that a lot of us have in our heads. This is an arrangement that is just as I described. I think just as tremendously creative. And as I go along in the score, you'll just see how complex it gets. But it begins with very simple, just ostinato stuff going on in the bass. Really cool chords from the beginning. And that stuff that I just played comes back several times. He sets it up as an ostinato, and then sopranos and altos come in there top of page 4. The stuff that you're used to if you know the spiritual. And then beginning on page 7, the right-hand part of your screen is where you'll see as you listen to the recording, actually on the left side part of your screen, how thick those chords start to be. And they're just wonderful, kind of dissonant, crunchy chords. Then on page 7, he starts to layer up. And you can see the basses doing what they have been doing. And then he divides the tenors. If you are lucky enough to have a tenor section that you can actually divide, this is a piece for you. Tenor 2. Bottom of 7, the tenor 1s come in. Hallelujah, Jesus. Hallelujah, Jesus. All this is continuing on and on as an ostinato, just laying on top of each other. And then page 8, you can see how complex the texture starts to get. Altos layering on top, then soprano 2s layering on top. Then top of page 9, your soprano 1s get to wail. And then page 10, it goes to unison, which I always love a composer doing after you've set up something really complex and polyphonic. Having the choir sing unison is always really, really powerful. I really wish that you could see this score at the same time as you were hearing the recording, but you will get a sense of it nonetheless. So I need to stop sharing in one way so that I can start sharing in another. Taylor, have you ever done this piece?
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I'm sure this never happened to you, but when I was blown away by, I ordered all of these Moses Hogan arrangements, it was definitely a situation for me that, you know how you fall in love with a piece and you desperately want to do it, whether or not you honestly really have the choir that can do it. That was the case with me early on with a lot of Moses Hogan arrangements. If you have 3 tenors, you shouldn't do a piece that divides the tenors in 2 like that.
Yeah, it's such a thick texture that you are shooting yourself in the foot if you don't have 5 firsts and 5 seconds.
If you can't deliver. Yeah. This is a lesson we have to learn over and over and over. Okay, so I am going to mute and play Elijah Rock.
Oh, Elijah, 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 oh, Elijah. Come on, sister, help me to break down. Me, my Lord, don't pass this way. Elijah Rock. 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 Oh, Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. Oh, Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock, 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 Elijah Rock. Elijah, Satan ain't nothing but a snake in the grass. He's a codger, he's a liar. Elijah Rock, 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 go, Elijah Rock, 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 go, Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock. If I could, I surely would. Elijah Rock. Stand on the rock where Moses stood. Elijah Rock. If I could, I surely would. Elijah, stand on the rock where Moses stood. Elijah Rock, 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 Elijah
Yeah, I think that's a crazy cool arrangement. Moses Hogan died way too young, died at the age of 45 from a brain tumor, but those arrangements that he did are just really, really extraordinary. So
Yeah, that's not from this planet. It really is not. It's amazing, and it's so complex, and it's like you're looking at the inner workings of a clock or something. Like you're watching all these cogs sort of move together, and I'm so taken with what we know spirituals to be. You know, music that's like organically done, helping an oppressed group of people pass the time, helping them express feelings of faith, helping them convince one another that better days are ahead, and in so many ways, the simplicity of other arrangements of Elijah Rock can still do that. This, though, just feels like people who are about to explode. They've been pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, and that's all welling up in the form of this piece of music. It's just too much. Also, when I performed that tenor part that just kind of goes crazy about halfway through, I remember thinking to myself, "Don't lock your knees; you're going to pass out," because that you do that a few times, and you start to wonder if you are seeing like tunnel vision.
Yeah. So you brought a piece this morning. Will you talk to us about it? Do you want me to go ahead and put the score up, or do you want to?
Would you put the score up and let's play the music at the same time?
Taylor, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, but I'll put the score up as a start here. I'm putting the score up. Okay, and let me get it to a place where I can make it prettier. Okay, what do you got for us?
So I brought Lullaby, Good Night, My Angel, which is an early to mid-'90s Billy Joel song that Philip Lawson wrote while he was singing with the King Singers. And I don't remember the first time I heard this exactly, but I just remember feeling like warm inside when I heard King Singer's live performance of Lullaby. And to me, it was this really wonderful sort of hymn-like strophic piece of music that, although written by an agnostic New York Jewish man, it was 100% applicable on Christmas Eve. So I have programmed this on Christmas Eve several times, and when you were asking if I could bring a piece for this interview, I realized that one of the things that I'm mourning the loss of right now is the ability to be creative for Christmas Eve. I mean, we'll be creative for Christmas Eve, but it'll just be different. It'll be, a virtual creativity. And this has been a lovely thing to put together. I've had a men's group sing it from the balcony in the middle of communion. I've had Voces 8 did it when they joined us on our big Christmas program a few years ago. And I just think it is so peaceful, so lovely, so tender from parent to child. And I would like to choose to think of it as a sacred piece of music. So I do. I don't think there's anything remarkable about the way it's laid out. It is very true to the Billy Joel original, and it doesn't. The King Singers, of course, could have shown off and done all sorts of melismatic things, but it just sort of sticks with the hymn-like texture that Billy Joel created, and every time it gets to the end, to the part that says, and if you sing this lullaby, and it's the countertenor singing, I could just absolutely melt. And I don't want it to end. I always want it. I want there to be like one more push. So this is my piece. This is me mourning the loss of Christmas creativity.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the line right there. if you sing this lullaby, then in your heart we will. Then in your heart there will always be a part of you. Keep going, and me. Yeah, which is just so sweet.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sort of, I think as well, if you are a person of faith who values thinking creatively about connection between Christmas Eve and the Easter story, or the foreshadowing perhaps of birth and death and resurrection and all, just thinking of Mary singing those lines to the Christ child, and ultimately then having zero control as she stood at the foot of the cross, but yet being connected perhaps by this line, this lullaby, just very sweet to me. So
Okay. So I'm going to play the King's Singers, a video of the King's Singers singing this. I got some feedback on the last that the level was low on the audio. Sorry about that. I will try and do what I can. But this is the King's Singers from, what do you suppose, maybe 20 years ago? I was looking at this lineup and something like that.
yeah, maybe 2002, 2004, somewhere
Okay.
in there. Yeah.
Lovely. Let's hear it.
Mute your audio.
Ah.
Good night, my angel, time to close your eyes and save these questions for another day. I think I know what you've been asking me. I think you know what I've been trying to say. I promised I would never leave you, and you should always know. Wherever you may go, no matter where you are, I never will be far away. Good night, my angel, now it's time to sleep. And still so many things I want to say. Remember all the songs you sang for me when we went sailing on an emerald bay. And like a boat out on the ocean, I'm rocking you to sleep. The water's dark and deep inside this ancient heart. You'll always be
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I didn't know that at all.
Really,
Nope.
man, so good.
Yeah. Um, it is, we're getting a lot of um, feedback that it's difficult to hear the audio sharing. Is that true where you are, Taylor?
I could hear it, but wearing headphones. Maybe that's
You're wearing headphones. Yeah. We'll see what we can do. Everything is turned up high where I am. So that's a gorgeous piece, and it looks like it's totally. It looks to me like it's fairly simple to put together. Is that true?
yeah. I mean, the I've done it in two ways. I've done it with TTBB and I've done it SATB. Would say it's harder TTBB than it is SATB. Uh, and it if you do buy the men's version, it's not in that same key, if I remember correctly. Uh, and maybe sits a little lower. I don't remember. Anyway, yes, not hard to put together, very impactful. And I think it catches people by surprise, which is part of its impact, right?
Yeah.
In a church bulletin where the composer goes, if you put Billy Joel, Philip Lawson, I don't think people are thinking about, Billy Joel.
Right.
And the truth is, we probably could have done some sort of virtual something with that. I feel like this is the Christmas people want and need to hear, the things that like just resonate in their bones, the things that are the most familiar at Christmas, and less artistry. And I'm happy to yield to that this time. So we didn't do it, but I do love it.
Yeah. I really appreciate knowing about that. I want to talk for just a minute about your Magnificat and actually play a movement of it. Carolyn Good is on with us this morning, and of course, Carolyn is the one who made all of this possible. But for those of you that aren't necessarily aware, the short version is that for our wonderful Lessons in Carols service in the year 2016, we commissioned Taylor to write a Magnificat. And I remember getting in touch with you maybe like the day after Lessons in Carols in 2015, because I was interested in you writing a piece for us. And I don't know, I think you had been interested in doing a Magnificat setting. Is that right?
Yeah, I had the idea for that opening bit with the dotted 16th, dotted 8th, 16th thing. And that's as far as I got. But as I was toying around with it, the rhythm and the chords made me think, what piece does this need to be? And I thought, this is My Soul Magnifies the Lord. And so but that's as far as I got. It was a germ of an idea.
Right. And so you wrote, at that point, you set the entirety of the Magnificat text in 4 movements. And we did it here in this space with a big choir and a chamber orchestra. Beautiful piece, beautiful orchestration. It was such a wonderful thing to be in on, and such an honor to conduct the premiere of. And then what's interesting is that it has not been published until just like a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah.
And since then, you ended up writing a new movement for the piece that is not the Magnificat text in Latin as the rest of the piece is, but is an original English text. And that's what I want to play a little bit of. How did that happen?
So you and I were quipping back and forth at one point via text, and I thought that it would be funny to say to you something like, yeah, well, I just wrote you a major work, and you wrote back, really, a major work? And you put major in quotations. And I was like, you know what? Maybe if I add one more movement, it'll be a major work. I'm just kidding. I really did think that the piece was nice as 4 movements. I wonder if anymore if we can simply rely on a sacred Latin text to connect, or if we need to do things to bring it into the 21st century. And I don't know the answer to that. And maybe literally every time we have to ask ourselves, what's the value here? And can we modernize it without defacing it? And ultimately, I thought with the Magnificat, the answer was yes. And I guess some of that depended on the text that I found or that I got back. So I reached out to my friend Terry York, who's on faculty at Baylor, and asked him if he would write something. He said something along the lines of, "Gosh, this is really dense. I don't know. Let me see if I can put something together." And then I was sitting in traffic one day, and he sent me a text and said, "I just sent you this email." And when I got home, I pulled it up, and it was exactly what I ended up using in the Magnificat. So it went from, I don't know, this is too dense, I'm not sure that this is the project for me, to here's this exquisite text that really sort of encapsulates the whole feeling of the Magnificat and celebrates women, celebrates Mary, puts her at the forefront even more. And it really just, I was so touched by it. So there was no question. It wasn't like me writing back and saying, "Do you think we could use a different word here? Or what would happen if we did this or that?" I was all in. So that was it. I wanted to sort of round it out, and I wanted a modern voice, and so there it was.
And then the wonderful thing happened is that Voces 8 took this on and not only performed it, but also recorded it. This was just last summer, a year ago, this past summer.
Yes.
And so the recording that is now available, with it being the piece finally being published, is not bad.
No,
And
it is
so
not.
you were there for that recording project with Voces 8 and a bunch of other pro singers and an amazing professional orchestra in London. Was that pretty fun to be in on?
Yeah. Yeah, it was alarming. It was I, I was sitting in this beautiful space, this beautiful church, All Hallows in Gospel Oak, which is North London, and I hadn't heard the full version of the piece. I wrote for the instruments that you had, and I knew that I knew that it could be bigger, but I just wasn't sure exactly what that sounded like. And they opened the recording session, I believe, with the fifth movement, and it was like an out of body experience, and because it's just huge. And Barney looked back at me shortly after that first run through, which was really just a warm up for everybody, get everybody on the same page. And he said, "Is that okay?" I was like, "What? Shut up. Turn around and just keep doing that. Of course it's okay. It's amazing."
Well, what I'm going to play, and this is a YouTube video, folks, of the second movement, the one that Taylor wrote in the interim since we premiered it in 2016. And it's an excerpt of the second movement. It's about the first 3 minutes or so. And you will actually be able to see the score on the screen with this, which is lovely. And the solo that you're hearing at the beginning is from our friend Andrea Haynes, who is the tall, beautiful brunette soprano in Voces 8, for those of you that have seen them. So I will do my best to crank up the audio, and let's hear the second movement of Taylor's Magnificat. I love especially the wind writing, the flute, the oboe, the horn licks are just so beautiful. It's
Thank you.
really, really lovely.
Yeah, that was that was a nice relief because the first movement is big and joyful as it should be, and the second movement was immediately darker and more complex. And so when I wrote the English movement to insert between what I wrote for you, which was one bright and joyful, two darker and complex, it just gave us a chance to breathe, you know. And so in writing it, I just had that on the front burner, you know, like how to lighten the air a little bit, and that was the result. Is a little bold to have Andrea's the first part of her solo finish where it does in the voice, and then have a French horn come in on that exact same note. Maybe if I were doing it over again, I wouldn't have them share the note, because how many Andreas are there out there that are going to sing that solo? You know, I mean, like, it worked because she is who she is, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have thought this far ahead, but when we get to do it in London, I sure hope Andrea is available to sing that solo. That would make me tremendously happy.
yeah, I think Andrea would love to do just about any amount of singing right now, outside of the few things that they're getting to do. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. That would be lovely.
I thought you were going to say that you thought Andrea would give anything to sing for me, but that went a different way.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna say that. I'm
Well,
kidding.
yes. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I am, I'm most days I am two things. I am tremendously grateful to still be working and doing what we can do under these circumstances to try and connect people and put them in touch with music and make worship meaningful. But man, do I miss conducting
Yeah,
and being in a room full of people making music.
yeah, yeah. I was saying to somebody the other day that my primary worship experience is in crafting um, a service, which is done, you know, many weeks in advance, and rehearsing music with my choirs, which is done many weeks in advance. And so when it comes to the actual moment where that music is in that service, I'm less thinking about my own, you know, spiritual habits and needs, and more thinking about how to do something well. But the thing that I miss the most is that time of preparation with those people in that space. And if I ever took it for granted, which clearly I did, I'm sorry. You know, that it should never be the case that making music is something that we get adjusted to so much that we feel like it's owed to us. And this has been a season of really feeling that, you know?
Yeah. It will pass.
Yeah.
And we will be back with our choirs and with our people singing again. I just know that we will. Taylor, this has been great. It's been so cool to connect with you and talk about music. And most of, Taylor and I were talking before we came on. We're part of a group of guys who, for 16 years, during this particular week, the first week of November, have gone away together on a retreat. And we're just really missing that right now. And many of them are people that you all know, Brad Ellingbo and Ken Miedema and Taylor's dad, Sid Davis, and some others. And so we are, a group of guys who all do the same thing, basically do music in church. And I think we really could have used a chance to get together and be together. But this has been good. It's been good to connect with you and to talk about music. And I am hardly ever sincere when speaking to you or about you. But I hope you know how much I love your work, your music, and how meaningful it has been to me and to us at St. John's. So thank you for that. And please, please, please keep writing, because we will look forward to singing whatever you come up with next. Okay.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I look forward to some text that will offset everything that you just. I'm just kidding. I appreciate it. I appreciate every opportunity to have made music, whether I was there or not, at St. John's. It's very means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, Taylor.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.